Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Pemko. This is their part number 282A. This is an elevator is what we call this. This is a piece of extruded aluminum that is simply meant to help navigate an unusual sill condition when there isn't a single extrusion as a threshold that will do that, is the bottom line. Elevators allow you to kind of just get the extra elevation or lift that you need. And that's where these are really used, and we'll talk more in depth about that in a moment. First, some dimensional properties. This elevator is 1 inch overall width. Its overall height is 3/8. The important part is that it elevates something, a threshold, by a 1/4 inch. That's the important part. It's going to lift you a 1/4 inch. So from the edge here down to the bottom, it would be a 1/4 inch. This happens to just be a 6-inch sample piece for purposes of this video. It would be normal that there would be no screw holes in this at all. We'll talk about that in a moment. Now, where specifically where will you use this? Let's talk about that now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Now, where does an elevator come into play? Well, it comes into play in circumstances that basically you do not have a level sill condition. You've got something that's offset, okay? And you can have a very small offset or you can have a really large offset. I have seen in the recent past, I've supplied material for all of these sill conditions. The one from yesterday was the client needed a handicap compliant ramp assembly, 1 3/4 thick door, and they needed to go from 1/2 to 0 on one side. So they've got the door. There's going to be, we're going to go from 1/2 to 0 over here. There's going to be about a 3-inch wide piece that allows that ramp to nest into, to hang into, okay? On the interior of the opening, they had a 3/4 inch offset. So in this scenario, what we used was 2 ramp pieces that would go from 3/4 to 0, okay? And then in that joining piece, we're going to put a piece of 1/8 inch thin aluminum just to flush that off. Now, while we didn't use an elevator in that scenario describes where you will end up using this, where you have a disparate floor condition. Now, a practical application of where this is used is a condo building where you have a 30, 40-year-old condo building, and some of the units have original flooring, some have the 2nd generation flooring, the 3rd generation flooring. And you've got a threshold, a saddle threshold that's going to sit on the inside, but out over here, because the interior floor condition is higher, you're going to have a 1/2 inch tall saddle. And when you lay that so that it's level, well, it's going to be hanging up a 1/4 inch. And that's where the elevator comes in. 1/2 inch height over here is good, but you're dropping down and you need to pick up that extra 1/4 inch. Another client in Miami just needed a ramp situation to get into a retail space, and while he didn't use an elevator, while he didn't order the material, the handicap code tells us that, you know, for every 1/2 inch in rise you've got 6 inch in run. So for this client, and I forget his offset, it may have been 1 1/4 inch. Well, in that sort of scenario, you're going to need an 18-inch you're going to need a 15-inch wide ramp for that application. You can't have 15-inch of aluminum hanging into the city street. But if he needed something that wasn't handicap compliant, we could have used a piece of threshold like a Highboy that has a vinyl insert on top of it. He could have ripped one leg back, let that set down, and this is a condo job actually in Fort Lauderdale I'm now describing, and then pick up just the area that you're missing. So disparate floor surfaces are really where elevators come in. Let's switch, and I feel like I may have mucked up that description somehow, but think of it as an auxiliary, an accessory piece. And as you look in the catalog or consider different profiles of thresholds, remember there is an elegant way to build that up when you want to maintain the threshold as level. You could take a saddle threshold and install it like this. Well, that's no good. It's meant to be like this. And you've got zero condition over here, but then it drops down over here a 1/4 inch. Add an elevator. Now, before we switch to the screen view, the elevator doesn't have any screws, as I said earlier. It's reliant on the pressure of the threshold to hold it in place. That's how it's done. I've never had someone complain that the elevator slipped out, but the gentleman in Miami, he was very concerned, yeah, that's not going to work because we're going to go over it with 2-wheel rolling cart traffic, deliveries. I think it wasn't a restaurant, it may have been a convenience store. And they were concerned about 100 pounds hitting that elevator and knocking it out eventually. I would be too. You can have, to solve that problem, the factory weld the elevator onto the back of it. You can have them do all those fabrication services. So this becomes a piece where in your mind's eye you can put together an irregular shaped saddle when you consider the concept that you can cut, you can rip, you can weld. Let's switch to the screen view and let's take a closer look. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Okay, here's the item that we are looking at. Elevator profile here, as you can see in black. Showing you exactly how it's meant to be. Wow, that's an awful picture. I am blowing it. Yeah. Now you kind of get the idea. That's what it's kind of doing. Okay. In a crude sort of fashion. That's what we're dealing with. This other circumstance that I talked about earlier is a highboy threshold basically looks like this. There's a low boy and a high boy. It's just a saddle threshold with a piece of inserted vinyl that's here. This is the seal. This is vinyl. So what this client needed to do was cut part of this back and then add the elevator here so that this was sitting like this. Is kind of what we were doing. So ripping this leg off and then adding an elevator to really achieve, a circumstance. The problem with this concept is in that job that I'm discussing, they're fire rated doors, and NFPA 80 states your threshold is never to be less than 4 inch wide, and this was 3.5 inch. Is it was actually the low boy. Well, I think we did some of each. All that means is one is 7/8 tall and the other's like 1.25 inches. The question I have is this sort of concept where we've ripped something and then used an elevator acceptable? And I would technically say it's not because it's not been tested. The client was made aware of what is being done has not been tested, but they elected to proceed anyway. Let's take a look at some photographs of what we're working on. That's the profile of the item. The front edge, or the back edge, I should say. The leading edge, showing a bit of what it looks like from the top side and then the bottom side. Okay, so pretty interesting. Extended description information is here. Be a redo of everything we just discussed. Designed to raise the height of a saddle threshold or others. Elevators can also be used to make a custom threshold for a special offset application. Elevators are secured by the weight of the saddle threshold they support. They can be welded upon request, and an additional charge for welding will apply. Most definitely, fabrication charges are not inexpensive. Because the person who can weld aluminum is not necessarily, he's qualified to weld. He's overqualified to do data entry, so that's going to cost more money, so to speak. Now, let's look at the other options of elevators. There's a catalog page here, and you can see the different profiles. It's basically variations on a theme. Okay, here's our 282, 1/4 inch rise. There's a 283, which is a 1/2 inch rise. 188 and the 183. The 183 is the same item, just turned on its end. So you can do 1/4, 3/8, or 1/2 inch in terms of elevators. Finishes: oil rub bronze powder coated equivalent, mill aluminum, black suede powder coat, dark bronze, and white suede powder coat. There's another link here called catalog page. That's just a cut sheet. We'll get that retitled. That's just a cut sheet. That's everything that we already have in the extended description. Now, there's a link below this video as seen here to the manufacturer's page. When you click on that, the manufacturer's page will load. And from here, you can view not only all of the Pemko products we sell by means of this horizontal navigation, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. And that's a pretty handy document to review because this is where you'll search for all of the different extrusions that Pemko has available. And there is no one in the industry that has a greater offering of gasketing products than Pemko. They have the most variety, the most options to review. As we scroll through these saddle thresholds, then we're going to get to half saddles or offset thresholds, and it just goes on and on and on. In terms of lengths, you can have any length you want, likely up to about 16.5 feet, but be mindful. The cost to ship is noticeably more expensive the longer you go. That is a graph that will be quite parabolic in nature when you see that shipping charge. So be mindful. If you need 24, well, if you need 30, if you need 42-inch lengths, don't order one 8-foot piece because you have 2 openings. Order them the length you need because you'll pay quite the shipping charge on 8-foot lengths. If you have need for a custom length, by all means let us know by indicating in the comment field what length you want us to cut it back to, and we'd be happy to do that. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that, you know, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. In conclusion, we don't sell elevators often because they don't really come into lots of applications, and the trouble that you'll have when you have these disparate floor conditions is the need to be handicap compliant. And an elevator is not ever going to give you handicap compliance in the sense that it's just not wide enough. It would have to be 3-inch wide to be truly handicap compliant, is really what it would have to be, because that relationship. Now, and that Pemko page, the link to the manufacturer's page that I indicated earlier, and I won't switch back to the screen view, there's a document called ICC A117.1-2009. ICC A117-1. That document gives you the government-defined formula for slope, all of the requirements for handicap. Now, California is going to have their own code book, but this is the federal guideline for it, and is the governing document when it comes to, is it handicap compliant in terms of a threshold, or is it not? If you meet the criteria outlined there, which is simple and straightforward, you're good. If you just do a Control F or find function on your keyboard and type in threshold, you're going to find likely dozens of matches for that. And if you're concerned, if you're not sure, that's the document that everyone goes to, whether you're a distributor, whether you're an architect, a manufacturer, a wholesaler, whoever. We are all going to that document, and that's where you would go as well, or someone like us who possesses the expertise. Any questions on the 282A or any other Pemko product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.